get what we want. Hey! It's about that time!
We know what we want to do. It's another opportunity for us to get better.
Alabama has won the match.
How you compete. That means how hard you play, how tough you play, how you can sustain in tough circumstances.
Welcome to TideTV This Week, brought to you by Renaissance Bank. I'm Christopher England alongside Maggie Hetzel.
Such a hard-fought game in Auburn this weekend. I mean, incredible, and all you can say is great job, guys, but outcomes happen, and, you know, it was a tough one this week.
It was a tough one, Maggie, and it was the final regular season game for the Crimson Tide as Alabama traveled south to Auburn to take on the 16th-ranked Auburn Tigers for the 84th edition of the Iron Bowl. After forcing an Auburn punt on the Tigers' first possession in his first road start on the road for the Crimson Tide as quarterback, Matt Jones led the Tide down the field after a holding penalty wiped a 37-yard touchdown to Henry Ruggs off the scoreboard. Joseph Bulovas nailed a season-long field goal from 43 yards out to put the Crimson Tide up 3-0. However, the Tigers scored on their third possession, a 7-yard touchdown run by Auburn quarterback Bo Nix. That made it 7-3, and that would be the score at the end of the first quarter.
And it may have been a slow start to the game, but that all changed in the second quarter as Alabama used a 14-play, 75-yard drive to retake the lead. Najee Harris ran that one in from 6 yards out to give the Crimson Tide the lead back at 10-7. Then after the Tigers tied it up with a 10 with a 43-yard field goal, they took the lead back with a pick six. Smoke Monday took the overthrow all the way back for the touchdown. That put Auburn on top by 17-10.
But when the Crimson Tide needed a big play, Jalen Waddle stepped up and answered the call. Waddle from the 2-yard line cut left at the 10, made an Auburn defender look silly, then he cut back toward the sideline. The Auburn defender seemed to have the angle on him, but he didn't have Waddle's speed. Waddle hit the turbo button and he was gone. 98 yards, and just like that, the game was tied again at 17. After a big play on special teams, the Crimson Tide defense came up with a big play. Xavier McKinney with a big hit on Booby Whitlow, forcing a fumble that was recovered by the Tide's Christian Harris. 4 plays later, Matt Jones found Henry Ruggs in the end zone for the score. Bama back on top, 24-17.
And after Auburn tied the game at 24, the Crimson Tide needed a big play, and yes, it was Waddle again. Mac Jones connecting with Waddle around midfield, and you know what? He did the rest. Back to the left sideline, and he was gone. He outraced everyone to the end zone for the score. Crazy second quarter, and the Tide was back on top, 31-24. But that wouldn't be the end of the craziness. On a controversial play to end the half, Auburn was given the chance to run another play. They elected to kick a field goal, and it was good, as you're seeing right here, from 52 yards out. 48 points were scored in that second quarter as Alabama went to the locker room up 31-27.
After an Auburn field goal to make it a 1-point game, the Tide drove right back down the field. 11 plays and 74 yards put the Crimson Tide first and goal from the Auburn 2-yard line, but the pass to Najee Harris was behind Harris, and it fell right into the hands of the Auburn defender. He took it all the way back 100 yards for the score, and just when it looked like Alabama was going to extend their lead, Auburn went back on top, 37-31.
Alabama needed a big play, and you know who they turned to. Jalen Waddle again with the terrific catch as he's dragged his feet in the corner of the end zone, got that one in, a 12-yard touchdown for Waddle's third score of the game. Put the Tide back on top by just a point, 38-37. Auburn added another long field goal with just 49 seconds to go in the third, and to take the 40-38 lead at the end of the third quarter.
The Crimson Tide had the ball to start the final 15 minutes of the game down 2. Jones led Alabama on another long scoring drive. The 6-play, 90-yard drive ended with, yes, another Jalen Waddle touchdown. Waddle blew right past the Auburn defender and made the miraculous leaping grab as he fell backwards into the end zone. That was Waddle's 4th touchdown of the game, and that put Alabama back on top, 45-40. Who would have thought that there would have been 95 points scored with just a little over 3 quarters of play?
No one thought that one. On the very next possession, Auburn answered with that 11-yard touchdown run, which you saw to go ahead. And then Alabama had the chance to tie it up with just 2 minutes, but Joseph Bulovas, the 30-yard field goal, was not good. Hit the left goal post. But the game wasn't over. Alabama forced Auburn into a 4th and 4 from there on 26, but as a substitution infraction by the Crimson Tide gave the first down and the victory, Tigers held on to defeat the Tide 48-45.
I really think that was a heck of a game. I think that you got to give our players a lot of credit for the way they competed in the game. We obviously overcame a lot of adversity in the game. 2 pick sixes, for them. Gave up some big plays on defense, but our players just kept battling back, in the game. We gave ourselves an opportunity to tie the game. We had a chance to get the ball back at the end of the game. I really feel that it was pretty unfair play at the end of the game. They substituted the punter as a wide receiver, so we put the punt team in, and then when the quarterback was still in there, we tried to put the defense back in. I thought they should have given us a little more time to substitute and get Waddle out as a returner. We get called for 12 guys on the field, so that was very disappointing. We're responsible for that as coaches. But it was a very unusual circumstance, to say the least. And I think, sometimes when you have those, that, they should be viewed that way. The disappointing thing to me is, we came here with the idea that we needed to play with a lot of discipline, not get a lot of penalties, do a great job of executing and doing our job on a consistent basis. And I don't think we did that great. We got way too many penalties, put ourselves in a lot of bad situations. Certainly moved the ball well enough, struggled in the red zone a little bit. Obviously, when you got the ball on the 2-yard line and you throw a pick six and they go back 98 yards, that's a huge play in the game. And but we still battled back even after that. But we just didn't play well enough. You got to give their team a lot of credit because they fought back and did a great job in the game as well. So it's very, very disappointing. I know our fans are disappointed, but I can promise you that our players are disappointed, and we're all very, very disappointed. And it's my responsibility to get our team to do these things better, and that certainly will be the goal in the future.
In just his 3rd start of the year, Mac Jones led an Alabama offense that gained 515 total yards and possessed the ball over 11 minutes more than the Tigers. Jones completed 26 of 39 for 355 yards and 4 touchdowns to go along with those 2 interceptions. Najee Harris had a game-high 146 yards rushing as he also matched his career high. Along with those 146 yards, Harris added a rushing touchdown and 4 catches for 26 yards. And then there's Jalen Waddle. Waddle had a career-high 3 receiving touchdowns to go along with the 98-yard kickoff return for a score. And then Henry Ruggs added a game-high 6 receptions for 99 yards and a touchdown.
Defensive back Xavier McKinney and defensive lineman Raekwon Davis led the Tide in tackles with 8, including 7 solo stops apiece. McKinney also had a forced fumble. Christian Harris and Jaleel Billingsley also had forced fumbles, with Harris adding a fumble recovery.
The 93 points scored in the game are the most Alabama and Auburn have combined for in the series in games played at Jordan-Hare Stadium. The previous high was just 62 back in 2013.
Alabama finished the regular season 10-2 with a 6-2 conference record. This is the first time the Crimson Tide have lost 2 games in a regular season since 2010. The next 2 last college football playoff rankings were released on Tuesday. Alabama came in at number 12 this week.
This is the first time, Maggie, that Alabama has been ranked outside the top 10 in the college football playoff rankings, as the lowest Alabama had been ranked previous was number 6 in 2014. That was the first year of the college football playoffs. So without another game for the Tide to move up, I think their playoff chances are pretty much over. And
we're going to find out where the Tide will play in postseason on Sunday.
The Alabama men's basketball team spent the Thanksgiving holiday in the Bahamas. When we come back, we'll have a recap of the Tide's trip to Atlantis.
Tide TV This Week is brought to you by ATI. Built by Bama. Rebuilt by ATI Physical Therapy. Ford and the F-150. Tough runs in our family. See your local Ford dealer today. AFS, a Bayless company. Your foundation and waterproofing specialists. Serving you since 2000.
We're going to work our tails off every day. We're going to get this thing rolling the right direction.
Oh, baby, what a jumper!
But we're going to get better, so we're going to give max effort, continuous growth, and then we talk about selfless love.
Tyra Lewis, a huge 3. Oh, my goodness, what a play. Oh, mercy! Unbelievable. Holy smokes. Showtime! Bama fans here at Coleman are on their feet.
Welcome back. The Alabama men's basketball team had an interesting and warm Thanksgiving holiday as the Tide traveled to the Bahamas to keep in the Bad Boy Mowers battle for Atlantis.
In the first game on Wednesday, John Petty had a huge game for the Crimson Tide against number 6 North Carolina. Petty shot 70% from beyond the arc as he had a game-high 23 points. Carl Lewis Jr. added 20, but it wasn't enough as the Tide fell just short to the 6th-ranked Tar Heels, 76-67.
And on Thanksgiving Day, it was John Petty who feasted. Petty had a career-high 34 points and 12 rebounds for his first career double-double against Iowa State. Despite trailing by 15 at halftime, the Tide cut the Cyclones' lead to just 6 points in the second half, but could never get any closer as Iowa State was just too strong down the stretch. Despite a career day from Petty, Iowa State won 104-89.
The Crimson Tide did bounce back in the third and final game in the battle for Atlantis. This time, Beetle Bolden led the way with a game-high 23 points. The Crimson Tide jumped out to a 20-4 advantage, but Southern Miss ended the half on a 23-8 run to give the Crimson Tide a 38-35 lead at the half. In the second half, Alabama shot 72% from the field and made 8 of their final 9 shots from the field as the Tide closed out the battle for Atlantis with the 83-68 win over the Golden Eagles.
And the Alabama women's basketball team was in Las Vegas over the Thanksgiving break. We'll have a recap of their trip to Vegas coming up next.
Tide TV this week is brought to you by ATI. Built by Bama. Rebuilt by ATI Physical Therapy. The University of Alabama, where legends are made.
Welcome back. After losing their season opener, the Alabama women's basketball team had won 4 in a row headed into the South Point Thanksgiving shootout in Las Vegas this past week. Could the Tide keep winning in Vegas?
Well, in their first game of the tournament, Alabama squared off against undefeated Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa jumped out to a 21-16 lead after the first period, but the Tide took control from there. Alabama outscored Iowa 56-36 over the next 2 periods as the Tide continued their hot streak and handed the Panthers their first loss of the season with the 87-77 win. Jordan Lewis led the way for the Tide with 23 points and 7 rebounds.
After that win on Friday, Alabama took on Southern California on Saturday. Crimson Tide led several times in the first period, but trailed by 6 at 28-22 at the half. Alabama cut USC's lead to just 2 in the opening minute of the fourth period, but couldn't get any closer as USC hung on to snap the Crimson Tide's 5-game win streak with a 60-57 win.
And you don't want to miss this. Coming up next, we'll have a special highlight that we've put together for you, and it's some of our favorite shots of the year. Welcome back to Tide TV This Week, brought to you by Renaissance Bank. Now that we're in December, the 2019 year for the Alabama Athletics is coming to an end.
Yes, it is, Maggie, and we've had some big moments, great plays, and a lot of memories from this past year. Let's take a look back at some of our favorite images from this past year. It's brought to you by ATI.
Oh my goodness, one of the plays of the year.
Fighting for each other. Okay. Hey, we all banged up, and we gonna be together as one. If we do that, we gonna come out as one.
It's not just the night on the field, know that. It's everyone. Because everyone matters.
We impose our will every snap! Let's go!
When you say toughness, like that's tough, that's tough.
Again, Casey works. The setup.
Hey, get your whip license, baby.
It's crazy because she's just like a mini version of me.
Hurdles over a man at the 15, and he will take it in for a touchdown. What a play.
We said if we were going to leave there, it had to be something special. The University of Alabama's really special. Coach.
You are special. I know we've been telling you that. I hope you believe it.
1, 2, 3, and 4.
Alabama Gymnastics has truly taught me how to pick myself back up when I'm down.
Hardy, base hit up the middle. They will wave Anderson home. And Alabama wins it with the Caroline Hardy pinch hit walk-off.
The ball comes loose, taken by Shane by Alabama. Touchdown.
Don't get that on camera. Cut.
Yes, sir.
Oh my God.
He's down. And Tua's down. His helmet came off.
Look, I've talked to Tua. I feel bad. I'm hurting. All right, but so I call him on Saturday night to cheer him up. He cheers me up.
It's just been one heck of a ride. 60 wins, and they have taught me a tremendous amount, and they've made me a better coach. So I can't thank them enough for the ride of a lifetime.
She's meant so much to this program.
Tears are already flowing before she even finishes her final pose.
We ready? Let's go!
Touchdown! Jalen Waddle. It'll be 78 yards. And how in the world he ever got away?
Back at the crib.
That is a milestone. It's a special moment that we got to share as a family.
Finds an opening over the top. Touchdown, Alabama. Jalen Waddle from about the 2. Tried this last time. Ended up with a penalty. This time into the open field. Jalen Waddle. Nobody's going to catch him. Coast to coast. Touchdown, Alabama. They shoot a lot of threes, including that one from Petty.
Those are our BBVA top plays of the week. Now let's take a look at our players of the week, brought to you by Payless Drugs. Sophomore wide receiver Jalen Waddle finished with a career-high 4 touchdowns in the Iron Bowl. 3 of his scores came on offense with touchdown receptions of 58, 12, and 28 yards. Waddle's other score came by way of a 98-yard kickoff return. Waddle's 98-yard kickoff return for touchdown was a career high. Waddle also leads the nation in punt returns, averaging 24.9 yards per return.
And John Petty had a career game while playing in the Bahamas. Petty totaled 67 points in 3 games as he's connected on 7 of 10 3-pointers to score 23 against North Carolina. And he had a career high against Iowa State. Petty connected on 6 of 9 3-pointers as he scored a career high 34 points to go along with 12 rebounds against the Cyclones.
Now let's take a look at next week's schedule for the Crimson Tide. What's next is brought to you by Renaissance Bank.
It's a pretty quiet week here on campus next week. Men's basketball is on the road on Saturday as they will take on Penn State in Happy Valley. Tip-off is set for 1 o'clock on the Big Ten Network.
And we do have one event on campus next week as the Alabama women's basketball team will be back in Coleman Coliseum as Alabama hosts North Carolina. The Tide and Tar Heels will tip off at 2. You can watch that game on SEC Network Plus. And thanks again for joining us for another episode of Tide TV This Week.
Thank you. Have a great week, everybody. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
This has been a presentation of Learfield IMG College.